Hi, my name is Jack Rotolo, and I am a college chapter development consultant for the Bridge USA national team. Today I'm going to be leading a training in leadership and team structure, so let's jump right into it. First off, we want to understand why we need a team structure and why it's important. To the left here, you have a little example of team structure. It may not look like this at your chapter, so you have to determine what the best team structure is for your chapter. But most importantly, you do need a team structure, so you want to choose a team structure that is right for your organization and your chapter and your college. There is no one-size-fits-all structure, so determine your needs, determine your shortcomings, and maybe determine where you have too many people, and make sure that each role is filled with a responsible and effective leader. Determine what your chapter needs. If you need a role for events, if you need a role for photography, just determine what your chapters need and make a role for it and hire that role. So alongside that, you might want to consider a few things as your chapter grows and as your chapter expands. Consider hiring a meeting manager. You can create a role for this. A meeting manager can focus on regular discussion meetings while the rest of the board can focus on larger events, especially the events coordinator, the events VP, whatever you call them. As your chapter grows, they're going to be more focused on hosting and making sure these large events can go on and go forth without being bogged down in the minutia of planning regular discussion events, because regular discussion events are the bread and butter of Bridge USA chapters and operations, but you want to make sure those happen effectively and repetitively. So if you hire a meeting manager, they can focus solely on that. What you might also want to consider do as your chapter grows is creating committees. Committees would basically be under the events, the marketing, and the outreach VPs. They would be the chairs of those committees. They would meet bi-weekly and then report back to the main board at the board meetings. And the purpose of these really are to ensure chapter operations can expand. If you have a lot of events at your chapter, a lot of large events, then you may need a large events committee. Maybe there's 3 people on the committee, including the events VP, and they can kind of formulate these event plans and plan for these events. So the rest of the board is not bogged down with other stuff, and they're able to focus on whatever their role is. So committees are a great way to expand, basically exponentially, your chapter operations and your success. It's also a great way to get other people involved in your chapter at a lesser committed, a lesser commitment, because board members require more commitment than committee members would. Committee members would only meet bi-weekly, and there's not as many responsibilities as a board member. You also want to encourage agency and independent contribution. Ideas should not only come out of your board meetings, and that's why having a team structure is vital to make sure that each team member has their own role, kind of their own lane. Obviously, everyone's contributing to this main mission, but we want to make sure that each board member is able to find agency and contribute to whatever their role is, whether it's finance, events, marketing, moderation, something like that. So that's basically the rationale why team structure is important and certain areas where you can expand on the team structure. Another thing that is important with having a team structure and having a team is having accountability structures as well. Here to the left, you see an example of Bridge Pittsburgh's roles and responsibilities document. This is basically just an outline of each role, their holders, whoever holds the role, and all the responsibilities of that role. This is just a great way to ensure transparency and understand what each board member needs to do for their role. So consider drafting one of these for your chapter. You can use this as an example. The link will be down below. You can copy and paste this and then tailor it to whatever your chapter is and put your own logo in, however you would like to tailor this. Alongside keeping accountability with your team structure, you also want to make sure you're keeping attendance for your executive meetings and impose a penalty system for missing required executive meetings. Make sure people aren't allowed to just skip when they want to skip. There has to be some sort of accountability while also balancing the the idea that Bridge USA is a nonprofit and people are not getting paid. We just want to make sure the mission is driven and your chapter operations are successful. So consider having that penalty system and keeping attendance for executive meetings. You also will want to have a shared action item document or programs or document that allows for your board members to see and understand what action items are pertinent to them, what they need to do. Sometimes this can be in a meeting agenda, sometimes it can be a spreadsheet where the board members can tick off whether they completed this or not. But you want to make sure that you have an action items document so each board member knows what they need to do and when, so that they're not coming to you saying, hey, what do I need to do? That's a very ineffective way of running a chapter. So make sure there's some way your board members have an idea of what they need to do and when they need to do it. Alongside of keeping attendance for executive meetings, you also want to remind people of meetings beforehand. Sometimes people forget, sometimes they don't have calendars. If they don't have calendars, recommend using an online calendar because that's the best way to keep track of all these executive meetings so board members know what meetings to go to. And if they do happen to miss a board meeting, follow up with them afterward, let them know what they missed, share the meeting agenda, share any ideas they might have, and yeah. Important thing about having a team structure is having a team structure diagram. And this really is not to create a hierarchy in any way, but like we talked about having the rationale behind a team structure, you want to make sure that this diagram is built in a way that delineates each role and you understand who reports to who. So this is an example of a team structure to the left here. This is Bridge Pittsburgh. And you can see how the president is at the top there, then there's a vice president, and then there's all these VPs. This can be swapped around with your chapter. The VP might be on the same level as all the other VPs. And for this specific example, there's committees in there. So you can see there's 2 event committee positions under the events chair, 2 outreach, 2 marketing committee members under that. So you want to create something that is good for your team and good for your team structure. So this is, like I said, for you to help delegate duties, not to establish yourself at the top of a hierarchy. And if you would like to create your own team structure, a good way to do it is in Google Slides, actually. So if you open up a blank Google Slides presentation, you click Insert, you click Diagrams, click Hierarchy, and then choose whatever hierarchy diagram you would like to create and create it into Google Slides. And then you can share this with the rest of your board so everyone has a general understanding of what the organizational structure looks like. So just some open questions that you might want to think about as you are deciding how to structure your team is, do you have enough board members? Do you have too little? Or is it just enough? Is each board member in a position that's best suited for them? And then generally, how is your board structure? And then also think about how you can improve your board structure. Don't just take your same board structure and do it year by year because one year you might need a photographer, another year you might need a meeting manager. So just really always assess what your chapter needs and what your board needs to drive your chapter operations forward. So now that we talked a lot about team structure, the need for team structure and its rationale, let's do a quick knowledge check. Why should you expand your executive team? And a few options here. Option A, because it is always a good practice to grow an executive team. Option B, because your chapter is struggling and you need more board members to support your chapter. Option C, because no one is stopping you. Or option D, your chapter has become successful and you need more board members to support your chapter. You can pause the video here if you'd like, and I'm going to reveal the answer. And the answer is D, because your chapter has become more successful and you need more board members to support your chapter. You don't want to expand your executive team just because you think it's a good idea to have more people, or it might look good if you have more people. That's not good practice. Expand your executive team as needed. If your chapters become successful, you've already reached the threshold of success and you need more people, then consider hiring more people. So just really be cognizant of your chapter operations. There is no one size fits all. And that basically concludes our team structure training. If you have any questions or input or concerns, feel free to contact me or anyone else in the national team. And that'll be all. Thank you. Have a great day.